All right, metalheads, get ready for another deep dive. We're going to be looking at some recent heavy metal news today. And I've got to say, some of these stories are pretty wild. I've got an expert with me today who can help make sense of it all.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. It's going to be really interesting to break down these stories. They really show us where metal is at right now, like how it's evolving and facing some pretty big changes.
Right.
Yeah.
So to kick things off, let's talk about AC/DC. They just announced the European dates for their Power Up tour. And they're playing some huge venues.
Oh yeah, those are some legendary venues.
Yeah, we're talking Lacini Airport and Prague Murrayfield Stadium in Edinburgh. Like, these aren't just concerts, they're the full-blown events.
It's a continuation of their Power Up tour, which, by the way, was already a massive success. And it marks their first return to Europe since their 2024 tour. These guys are showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
They're stadium-filling legends. Still rocking it after all these years.
It really speaks to their legacy.
Yeah.
You know how they can still command that kind of audience. And speaking of rocking it, they're also kicking off a U.S. tour in April. It's their first stateside show in almost a decade. And they're bringing the Pretty Reckless along for support.
Oh, wow. That's a great pairing. The Pretty Reckless has a really strong following, especially in the hard rock scene. And I think their sound will really complement AC/DC.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart move for both bands. Exposes them to new audiences. You know, there's something cool about seeing a legendary act like AC/DC sharing the stage with a band that's like part of the next generation of rock.
For sure. Like a passing of the torch. Speaking of changes, though, this tour also features a bit of a revamped AC/DC lineup. Chris Chaney is on bass, and Matt Legg is on drums.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're stepping in for Cliff Williams and Phil Rudd. And you know, these changes haven't been without some drama. Like, remember Phil Rudd's legal troubles a few years back? The band had to bring in Chris Slade for the Rock or Bust tour, and now Matt Legg is taking the reins, so...
Wow, yeah, I forgot about all that.
Yeah, I wonder if these changes will be noticeable to the average fan.
That's a great question. It'll be interesting to see how the new lineup dynamics play out on stage. Yeah. And, you know, we can't forget about Brian Johnson's story.
Oh, of course.
I mean, a few years ago, he was facing potential hearing loss.
I remember that.
Which would have been devastating for any singer, let alone the frontman of AC/DC.
Absolutely. His journey back to the stage is remarkable, though. A real testament to his dedication and resilience. He's been using some new in-ear technology, which allows him to perform without damaging his hearing further.
That's incredible.
It's inspiring to see him back out there belting out those classic tunes.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on from AC/DC for now and talk about another iconic frontman. Ghost just revealed their new Papa.
Oh, yeah, Papa Emeritus V.
Right, for their upcoming 2025 tour.
The ever-evolving world of Ghost. It's worth explaining this whole Papa Emeritus thing for those who might not be familiar with their shtick.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
Each Papa Emeritus character represents a different era of the band's sound.
It's not just a costume change either. Each Papa has their own personality and stage presence.
Exactly.
They even stepped away from the Papa Emeritus character for a bit. Remember Cardinal Copia?
Oh, yeah, I remember Cardinal Copia.
But they eventually returned to the lineage with Papa Emeritus V.
Right. And now Papa Emeritus V, it's all part of the mystique that Tobias Forge has created. He's the mastermind behind Ghost.
And this new Papa debuted at Black Sabbath's final concert.
Oh, wow, that's pretty symbolic. One metal legend bowing out and another being reborn. It's like a generational shift.
Yeah, it is kind of like that.
I wonder what our listeners think. Does a new Papa Emeritus make the band feel fresh? Or do you miss the previous incarnations?
That's a good question for the fans. I think it shows their dedication to evolving their image and sound while still staying true to what makes Ghost so captivating. You know, while we're talking about transitions, we should address the elephant in the room. Nicko McBrain's retirement from touring with Iron Maiden.
Oh, man, yeah. That news hit the metal world pretty hard.
It did.
After 42 years with Iron Maiden, he's stepping down due to health challenges, particularly after the stroke he suffered in 2023.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even our metal heroes are human.
It is.
And that health challenges can affect anyone.
His story is really powerful, though. He's battled back not just from a stroke, but also from laryngeal cancer years ago.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He even had a personal trainer with him on tour to help him regain his strength and stamina. It's like a fighter stepping back from the battlefield.
That's a good way to put it.
And his recovery process is inspiring.
Absolutely.
He went through intense therapy and training to regain his mobility and coordination. Can you imagine the impact of laryngeal cancer on a drummer?
Yeah. I mean, laryngeal cancer affects the voice box. which is obviously crucial for a singer. But for a drummer who relies on vocal cues and communication on stage, it must have been incredibly difficult.
It's incredible that he overcame that and continued performing at such a high level.
It really is.
You know, his story reminds you why you love heavy metal in the first place. The passion, the dedication, the refusal to give up.
For sure.
But even though McBrain will be missed, Iron Maiden marches on. They brought in Simon Dawson.
Oh, right. He played with Steve Harris in British Lion.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So what do you think about Dawson stepping into those massive shoes?
It's definitely a tough act to follow. But Dawson has the chops and the experience to hold his own. He's already familiar with Steve Harris's style, and he has a solid reputation as a powerful drummer.
Yeah, it's true.
It'll be interesting to see what he brings to Iron Maiden's sound and how he carves out his own space within the band's legacy.
For sure. I'm sure the fans will have their opinions.
Right.
Which is always part of what keeps the conversation around heavy metal so lively.
Exactly.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a band that's been a mainstay in heavy metal for over 5 decades.
Judas Priest.
Oh man, legends. Rob Halford recently talked about the band's evolution and their commitment to staying relevant after all these years. What do you think about that? How does a band like Judas Priest, with such a rich history, balance honoring their legacy while still pushing creative boundaries?
It's a delicate balancing act, but I think Judas Priest has navigated it masterfully. They've always incorporated new sounds and ideas into their music, from the soaring operatic vocals to the heavier, more experimental tracks.
And they've got the accolades to prove it. They were nominated for a Grammy this year for Crown of Horns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from their latest album, Invincible Shield. It also marks their 5th top 10 album in the UK.
Impressive.
Plus, they won a Grammy back in 2010 for Dissident Aggressor. Not many bands can boast that kind of staying power and critical acclaim.
Yeah, that's true.
So what do you think their secret is?
Well, I think it comes down to a few things. First, they're committed to quality songwriting. They don't just churn out riffs and scream into a microphone. They craft songs with memorable melodies and thought-provoking lyrics. Second, they're not afraid to experiment and evolve.
Yeah, they're not content to just rehash their old sound.
Exactly. They're constantly looking for ways to push their musical boundaries.
And third,
And maybe most importantly, they have a deep respect for their fans and a genuine desire to connect with them.
I agree. That connection with their fans is evident in their upcoming Shield of Pain tour. It's celebrating the 35th anniversary of their iconic Painkiller album.
Painkiller? What a classic album.
So I'm curious, which Judas Priest album is your personal favorite?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Each album has its own unique charm. But if I had to choose, I'd probably go with British Steel.
British Steel. Interesting choice.
It's raw, it's energetic, it captures the essence of their early sound.
I'm more of a Painkiller guy myself.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see the appeal of British Steel.
And it spawned some of their most iconic anthems. Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight. Those songs are still staples of their live shows.
For sure. It's incredible to think that an album released in 1980 is still so relevant and influential today.
It really is.
It speaks to the timeless power of their music.
And their ability to connect with audiences across generations.
Okay, so we've covered some major ground so far. AC/DC defying time and rocking stadiums. Ghost embracing their theatrical evolution, Nicko McBrain leaving a legacy of power and resilience, and Judas Priest showing us the art of staying relevant over decades. What are your overall thoughts on these stories? What stands out to you as a particularly interesting trend or theme?
Well, I think what strikes me most is the resilience of these bands and their dedication to their craft. They've all faced challenges, whether it's lineup changes, health issues, or the ever-changing music industry. But through it all, they've stayed true to their vision, and they've continued creating music that connects with fans.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. There's a sense of perseverance, of not letting anything stand in the way of their passion for heavy metal.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that resonates with fans. We admire their dedication, their talent, their ability to overcome adversity.
It's inspiring to see them continue to push boundaries and create music that challenges and excites us.
Well said. We'll be diving even deeper into these stories after a quick break.
We'll be back soon, so stay tuned, metalheads.
All right, we're back and ready to dig a little deeper into these heavy metal headlines. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of tour announcements and new music, but I think it's important to remember the human side of these stories too.
Oh, absolutely. Behind all the pyrotechnics and thunderous riffs, there are real people facing real challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We touched on Nicko McBrain's health journey, But, touring takes a toll on any musician.
Yeah, for sure. It's a demanding lifestyle, both physically and mentally.
It's easy to romanticize the rock star life.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's a grind.
Right.
Constant travel, late nights, the pressure to perform at your best every single night.
It can definitely wear you down.
Yeah, and I think as fans, we need to be more mindful of that.
I agree. We often forget that these are human beings, not just entertainment machines.
Right.
And I think it's important to talk about mental health challenges, too. The pressure to create, to perform, to live up to expectations. It can be overwhelming.
It's a conversation that needs to happen more openly.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see that happen, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's circle back to AC/DC for a second. We talked about the new lineup. But I'm curious about the legacy that Cliff Williams and Phil Rudd leave behind.
Oh, yeah. They were such integral parts of the band's sound for decades.
I mean, Cliff Williams on bass. He provided that solid driving groove that underpinned so many of AC/DC's biggest hits.
And Phil Rudd on drums, his style was pure rock and roll power.
Right.
He hit those drums like he was trying to break them. It perfectly matched the band's energy.
Those aren't easy shoes to fill.
Not at all.
And then there's Malcolm Young.
Oh, of course.
His rhythm guitar playing was the backbone of AC/DC's sound for so many years. His passing in 2017 was a huge loss for the band and for the entire heavy metal community.
Yeah, it was.
So do you think the band's decision to continue without him is a way to keep his legacy alive?
That's a tough question. I think only the band members themselves can truly answer that. On one hand, continuing on without a founding member can feel like a betrayal.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can be seen as a way to honor their memory and keep their music alive for future generations.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. And I think AC/DC's doing their best to navigate those complex emotions. They're paying tribute to their past while still looking towards the future. Speaking of the future, let's shift gears back to Ghost. Their new Papa Emeritus has sparked a lot of discussion online.
Oh, yeah, I've seen some of those discussions.
Fans are debating whether he lives up to his predecessors.
It's always interesting to see how fans react to these kinds of changes. Ghost has built such a loyal following based on their theatricality and mystique, and those Papa Emeritus characters are a huge part of that.
Right.
Each one has brought something unique, and fans have their favorites. So it's understandable that there would be some resistance to change, especially when it comes to something as iconic as Papa Emeritus.
But isn't that part of what keeps Ghost so interesting?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They're constantly evolving, pushing boundaries.
And challenge our expectations.
I think it's a testament to Tobias Forge's creativity.
Oh, definitely.
That he can keep this concept fresh and engaging after all these years.
It takes a lot of skill and artistry to create these characters and to embody them on stage in a convincing way.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that heavy metal is more than just loud guitars and screaming. It can be a platform for theatrical expression, for storytelling.
For sure.
All right, let's turn our attention to Iron Maiden. Nicko McBrain's retirement is a big loss for them, musically and personally.
Yeah, no doubt.
So what do you think it will take for Simon Dawson to win over the fans?
I think he needs to approach this with humility and respect. For McBrain's legacy, he needs to honor the band's history, but also bring his own style and personality to the table. It's a delicate balance, but I think he has the skills and the experience to pull it off.
He is a seasoned drummer.
Yeah.
And he's got a powerful presence.
I'm confident he'll do justice to Iron Maiden's sound.
It's a tall order stepping into the shoes of a legend like Nicko McBrain.
It is.
But I think the fans are ready to embrace a new chapter.
Yeah, me too.
They're a loyal bunch.
Yeah.
And I think they'll give Dawson a fair shake.
I hope so.
And hey, maybe we'll see some exciting new twists on those classic Iron Maiden tracks.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Okay, let's talk about Judas Priest again. They've managed to stay relevant for over 5 decades.
It's incredible.
It's just no small feat in the music industry.
Yeah.
Especially in a genre like heavy metal, which is often seen as being stuck in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
So how do you think they've done it? How have they achieved this longevity?
I think it's their ability to adapt and evolve while still staying true to their core identity.
Yeah.
They've experimented with different sounds and styles over the years.
Right from their early bluesy stuff.
Yeah.
To the more operatic and theatrical elements on their later albums.
But through it all, they've never lost sight of what makes Judas Priest Judas Priest.
There's a consistency in their sound, a certain energy and attitude.
It doesn't matter what era you're listening to.
It's that unmistakable Judas Priest DNA.
Exactly. And it keeps fans coming back for more decade after decade.
And they've managed to stay connected to their fan base. They understand what their fans want, and they deliver it consistently.
Well, that's so important.
And, they're not afraid to take risks either. To push the boundaries of what's considered acceptable in heavy metal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about Rob Halford coming out in the 90s.
Right.
That was a huge deal at the time. It challenged the image of what a heavy metal frontman was supposed to be.
Absolutely. It was a bold move. And it paved the way for greater acceptance and diversity in the metal community.
It's a reminder that heavy metal is about rebellion.
Yes.
About challenging the status quo.
And about embracing individuality.
And Judas Priest has always embodied that spirit.
For sure.
They've never been afraid to be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that authenticity shines through in their music.
It's what makes them so relatable and so enduring.
Okay, so we've been talking about aging musicians and the physical demands of touring. We've seen bands like the Rolling Stones and Kiss continue to tour well into their 70s and beyond.
It's amazing to see.
It's a testament to their passion and dedication.
It really is.
But it also raises questions about the sustainability of that lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, touring is physically demanding.
Yeah.
And as musicians get older, it becomes harder to maintain that level of energy and stamina.
There's a lot of travel involved, long hours. The pressure to perform at a high level night after night.
It takes a toll.
It does.
And it's not just the physical demands. There's the emotional toll of being away from family and friends.
Right.
It's a lifestyle that requires sacrifice.
It's not for everyone.
But for those who are truly passionate about music, it's a calling.
It's a way of life.
And I think that's what we're seeing with these veteran bands. They're still putting on incredible shows. They're connecting with their fans on a deep level.
They're driven by a love of music and a desire to share it with the world.
And that passion is contagious.
Yeah.
It inspires us. It energizes us.
It reminds us of the power of music.
To transcend age and circumstance.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the evolution of heavy metal. We've touched on how bands like Judas Priest and Ghost have incorporated new sounds, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the broader trends within the genre.
Well, one of the most exciting things about heavy metal is its willingness to evolve and embrace new influences.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of bands blending traditional metal elements with elements of other genres.
Like what?
Like progressive rock, jazz, electronic music, even classical music.
Wow.
It's creating a really diverse and dynamic landscape.
It's a melting pot of sounds and ideas.
Yeah.
It's pushing the boundaries of what we even consider heavy metal.
I think so.
So what are some bands or artists that you think are really pushing the envelope?
Well, there's a band called Sleep Token. They've been getting a lot of attention lately.
I've heard of them.
They combine atmospheric black metal with soulful vocals and electronic textures. It's a really unique sound.
Interesting.
And then there's Imperial Triumphant. They're creating this avant-garde, experimental black metal that's heavily influenced by jazz and classical music.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. It's challenging and dissonant, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
It sounds like heavy metal is in a really exciting place right now.
I think so.
It's embracing experimentation and diversity.
Yeah.
And it's attracting a whole new generation of fans.
Definitely.
It's not just about being loud and aggressive anymore. It's about pushing creative boundaries and exploring new sounds.
And I think that's a really positive development.
Me too.
It shows that heavy metal is a vital and evolving art form.
Right.
It's not stuck in the past. It's looking towards the future.
And speaking of the next generation, let's talk about the impact that these veteran bands are having on younger musicians.
Oh, yeah. They're not just inspiring them musically. They're setting an example.
Of what?
Of professionalism, dedication, resilience.
They've weathered storms. They've overcome obstacles.
They've continued to create music on their own terms.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
It's not always about fame and fortune. It's about passion, perseverance, and a love of music.
And I think that resonates with musicians of all ages.
It's a universal message.
It is.
And it's especially relevant in heavy metal. Where there's such a strong sense of community.
Yeah, it's like a tribe, a family.
Brotherhood of headbangers.
United by their love of loud music.
And their shared values.
Of rebellion, individuality, and authenticity.
And those values are being passed down to the next generation.
Which is awesome.
It ensures that heavy metal will continue to thrive.
I hope so.
But it also raises some interesting questions about the future of the genre. As these veteran bands eventually step aside, who will carry the torch?
That's a big question.
Will the next generation be able to fill those shoes?
I don't think there are any easy answers. But based on what we're seeing now, with all the incredible talent and creativity emerging, I'm optimistic about the future of heavy metal.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's in good hands.
The spirit of heavy metal is alive and well.
It's showing no signs of slowing down.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to touch on something that's been on my mind. The role of heavy metal in today's society.
That's an interesting topic. It's often debated.
Some people see it as a negative force, a symbol of aggression and violence.
Right.
But I think that's a very simplistic view. Heavy metal, like any art form, can be interpreted in many ways.
Exactly.
It can be cathartic. It can be empowering. It can be a force for good.
I think it's important to remember that it's a form of expression. And like any form of expression, it can be used to communicate a wide range of emotions and ideas. It's not inherently good or bad. It all depends on the artist and their message.
And I think we're seeing a lot of heavy metal bands today using their platform to address important issues.
Like what?
Like social and political issues.
Oh, yeah.
They're speaking out against injustice. They're promoting tolerance and understanding. They're using their music to inspire positive change.
They're not just entertaining us. They're making us think.
They're challenging our perceptions.
They're encouraging us to engage with the world.
And that's powerful.
It is. It shows that heavy metal is more than just music. It's a culture, a community, a movement.
That's capable of making a difference.
It's a force to be reckoned with. And I think it's a force for good.
I couldn't agree more. All right, we're running out of time. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
Okay, I like it.
We've talked about the past, present, and future of heavy metal, the challenges and triumphs, the evolution and staying power. But what about its meaning? What does heavy metal mean to you personally?
That's a great question. Something we could all spend some time thinking about.
Yep.
Heavy metal is more than just music. It's an experience, a feeling, a way of life.
What role does it play in your life? So I've been thinking about your question, about what heavy metal means to me.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to describe.
But for me, it's like this raw, unfiltered expression of human emotion. It's about confronting the darkness, embracing the chaos, and finding strength and vulnerability. It's not always pretty, but it's always real.
I think that's a great way to put it. Heavy metal isn't afraid to explore those dark parts of ourselves,
Right.
the shadows that we often try to hide from.
Exactly.
It's about acknowledging the pain, the anger, the fear, and finding a way to channel those emotions into something positive.
And there's something so liberating about that. It's like a release valve,
Yeah.
a way to let go of all the pent-up energy and frustration.
Yeah, it's cathartic.
And it's not just about expressing those negative emotions. It's about finding beauty and strength in them, turning pain into power.
Turning darkness into light.
Exactly.
It's about taking control in a world that tries to tell us how to feel, how to think, how to be. Heavy metal rejects those constraints.
It's a declaration of individuality.
A celebration of the outsider.
A big middle finger to the status quo.
That's heavy metal.
And that sense of community is huge. It's a global tribe of misfits and rebels, united by their love of loud music.
And their shared values.
Authenticity, integrity, a refusal to conform.
It's a safe space to be yourself.
To let your freak flag fly.
To find acceptance and belonging.
It's about finding your people, the ones who get you, the ones who understand the power and the passion.
It's about finding your home away from home.
Where you can just be yourself.
Without judgment or pretense.
And that energy is infectious. It's like a collective catharsis, a shared experience.
It transcends language and cultural barriers.
You lose yourself in the music. Let go of your inhibitions. You become part of something bigger than yourself.
It's a primal experience.
It's a ritualistic gathering.
It's a celebration of life.
But I think that's why heavy metal has endured for so long.
And why it continues to attract new fans.
It speaks to something deep within us.
Something raw and unfiltered.
Something that connects us.
To our shared humanity.
It's a reminder that we're all in this together. That we're all just trying to find our way.
In a world that can feel chaotic and overwhelming.
And sometimes, all you need is a heavy metal song to remind you that it's okay to feel those emotions, to embrace the darkness, and to find strength in vulnerability.
Because in the end, it's those shared experiences, those moments of connection that make life worth living.
Well said. Well, metalheads, that's all the time we have for today. We've explored the highs and lows, the triumphs and challenges, the evolution and enduring power of heavy metal.
We've talked about legendary bands and rising stars, and the impact of this music on our lives.
But the conversation doesn't end here. Heavy metal is a living, breathing entity.
It's constantly evolving and challenging our perceptions.
So keep those horns held high, keep exploring, keep listening, and most importantly, keep the spirit of heavy metal alive.
Until next time, stay metal.